This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free, and it goes to Gibbs wide.
First time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robinson do. Taylor one, he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic! Here's Bob Williams. He's through here! And in the end, Forrest will say it doesn't matter how you play as long as you win it. Yeah!
Hello and welcome to this edition of Red Side of the Trent. Joining the pod today is a returning guest in the form of South American football expert and Forest fan, Nathan Joyce. Good to have you back on, mate. How are things with you?
Yeah, not too bad. Before we jumped on this, I was just telling you how busy I am with Copa America, and then the transfer window is probably going to be just as ridiculous. So yeah, throughout July and August, apparently I'm not allowed to sleep, but I'll go into hibernation once the season probably starts for a bit.
Yeah, all the South American links with Forest, which there are plenty which go about and kind of go by the wayside, don't they? But I mean, we'll start with the Forest and America's connection with a player who is on his way. Trent sidebar, any last minute Wesley Verhoot vibes, if you remember that fiasco. And that is 6'8" Brazilian goalkeeper Carlos Miguel from Corinthians, who are the same side we took Murillo from last summer. I mean, what can you tell us about him, Nathan?
Well, he's big. He's probably the starting point. And I think a lot of people then go towards the Pantilimon vibes to be like, is he going to be able to get down? And for his size, his reflexes are very good, to be honest with you. There's been a lot of times, look, Corinthians are a team which struggle, which may sound silly, but they have a really good academy, but those players are being plucked at an earlier age, and they don't really have the finances, and the last people sort of in charge have, like we saw with Miguel's transfer fee, which was reduced from 50 million to 3.4 or whatever it was in the end. There's been a lot of terrible decisions behind the scenes. So Corinthians are a team in free fall. So he's been a very busy goalkeeper, which is why he had the joint saves in Brazilian league compared with, there was one of the keeper, I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head, but that was mainly down to his reflexes, where he's had to pull off multiple saves in one go, and he's impressively been able to do that. As soon as he was linked with Forest, I think he was improving his highlight reel, because there was a couple of games that week where he made these quick reflex saves and really showed what he was about. And I think that's really impressive. I think a lot of people would say a keeper of that height won't be able to get down and will struggle in the Premier League and blah, blah, blah. And there's always ifs, buts and maybes with these players who come across, especially because it is such a small sample size with Miguel. But what he has shown has been very impressive with his reflexes, and he can play with both feet as well, which I feel like that's definitely worth mentioning. It's a big tick in the Premier League. We saw time and time again with Matt Turner last season, how many times he got into trouble and how many goals we conceded from that, and how you're punished in the Premier League. So he can play with his left and his right foot, which is exactly what you want, a bit more confidence in your keeper. Perhaps overly cocky at times, a few occasions for Corinthians this season where he's taken too long on the ball and his clearances have rebounded to strikers or midfielders. And I can already feel the hearts pulsing of Forest fans and listening to this. But that's a part of his game which can be stamped out of. He'll soon learn his lessons when inevitably he will make one of those mistakes. That's bound to happen if he's been doing it with Corinthians and then coming across to the Premier League, especially if he doesn't start straight away and he's thrown into a League Cup game. It will always take time to adjust. I think Forest have been very fortunate with the likes of Murillo and Danilo, who have come across, and they've just almost just taken like a duck to water with English football. And with goalkeepers, mistakes are always highlighted a hell of a lot more. So that part of his game is a little bit of a concern. Set pieces, you would say, 6'8", you can just pluck the ball out of the air, which he can do at times. Lots of teams try to put men on him for obvious reasons, and he will lean towards punching the ball, where I know, again, at times that can be a little bit dodgy. But from crosses, he can just pluck the ball out of the air. He is very confident with that. But what I really like, and where I feel like it will suit Forest, whether he comes in as number one or number two, is his distribution out of his hands, whether throwing it or kicking it, he looks to release wingers, and Corinthians have really quick wingers as well, and looking to counter-attack teams. Now, we've seen that as a common theme over the last couple of seasons in the Premier League with Nottingham Forest, whether it was to Brennan Johnson in the first season, looking to release them quickly and get them off. Obviously, Gibson White, Callum Hudson-Odoi last season, maybe not as pacey, but trying to break it so it's 3-on-3 or 3-on-4 when releasing it from a set piece or a corner, even when they didn't go in the back of the net. So I feel like that could be a really good part of his game where we'll reap the rewards from it. So there's a lot of positives with Miguel from a small sample size, admittedly, but the way he's come into a Corinthian side who have been sort of languishing towards the bottom of the table, not really getting good results. They could have been a hell of a lot worse without him. And speaking to other Brazilian journalists and I'm not Brazilian, I've said it again, I told you 3 podcasts today, Brazilian journalists and South American experts in and around him, they've almost been waiting for him to burst on the scene and get his opportunity. And he's really taken it with 2 hands, pardon the pun, for a goalkeeper. But he has impressed. And again, similar to Murillo, Forest have actively got a relationship with Corinthians, or they've been monitoring these players, and they obviously have targets there, and they're happy to take a chance on them if they fit the mould. And clearly Forest think that Miguel does. So 3.4 million in today's market for a goalkeeper who is highly rated in Brazil. Yes, it's always a case of if he will adapt and come across. And even if Murillo does depart, he's had his say and he's gone over there and he's had good words to say about Forest. That influenced his decision to come over, because I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have just been Nottingham Forest. It might have been other European teams looking at him as well. So the fact that Forest have got the business done nice and early is once again really impressive. And I've said that continuously with the South American players which have come across. The way Forest don't mess around with Danilo, Murillo, etc. has been really impressive. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see when he comes across exactly if he is number 1, number 2, because I still don't know. I can't work it out for myself yet. And I suppose it depends on how Sells gets on in those first 5-10 games, whether Nuno will look to change it. So it'll be interesting to follow, but the profile seems very good, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is if you see him as a number 1 or a number 2 starting off. I think, obviously I don't think Sells has done much wrong to kind of lose the shirt at the minute, but Nuno will probably have a look at him pre-season, and there's probably going to be a third choice brought in as well, because most Prem teams have 3 keepers. I'm sure that'll be maybe someone more experienced, or we might stick a young keeper in as number 3. I'm not too sure, but that third choice keeper could be Matt Turner, who last season just didn't go to plan with him at all. I know you've been watching him in the Copa America. Is what happened at Forest last season kind of transferred into that tournament with him?
He's not been great. And obviously the US have bowed out of that in the group stage. First time the host has ever left the Copa America at that stage of the competition. So it's not all on Matt Turner, but he didn't have a good tournament. And would he want to stick around for that third shirt when normally the third goalkeeper is a little bit older when fans like them, but there's no real relationship there with the fans and Turner anymore, and he'll be looking at 2026 and wanting to keep that number 1 jersey for the US. So I imagine he'll leave as well. Whoever will come in, I'm not really sure. More like a Scott Carson-esque. That's what you'll probably want from this.
Like a Hennessy into that type of keeper.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've seen a few articles around Carlos Miguel going, he's going to come in and challenge for the number 1 shirt. Well, of course he is. He's not going to move all the way across from South America if he thinks he's just going to be happy to be the number 2. Every keeper's going to say that. His agent's going to say that. But he's got, like you said, Sells hasn't done much wrong, to be honest with you. He was steady, wasn't he? He was better than what I expected when I think Forest had a huge list of goalkeepers who they wanted to bring in January, and Sells was probably 7th, 8th, 9th down that list. But he's come in and he did a good job, to be honest with you. So long term, I think potentially Sells for now, but if he has a slip up or cup opportunities and Miguel impresses, then you never know. It'll be really interesting to monitor, but it's good to have 2 keepers there as an option, because last season, well, we had that last season, but the 2 choices weren't really the best, were they?
Yeah, we just needed some calm, didn't we? And I think Sells brought that because, it just didn't work for Vlachodimos. Every shot, I think Vlachodimos pretty much bar one or two went in. And I mean, Matt Turner's distribution and your heart was in your mouth at every game. I think Turner will probably go back to the MLS on loan. I don't see anyone probably giving us the money to kind of recoup as losses so we don't lose on PSR. So it wouldn't surprise me if he goes back to the MLS on loan. And
Yeah, you're
like you
probably
say,
right.
Nathan, with the World Cup coming, maybe turns into a permanent move this time next year. But we'll see.
I think that suits him, to be honest. And look, it hasn't worked out with Forest. I get that, but I think if he goes to the MLS, and there's a lot of players in that US squad from the MLS, and so he will keep that number one shirt if he goes and does a good job there. And it didn't work out for him, but like you said, his distribution, Forest had to really earn points ever since being promoted. Every point has been really earned, and the fact that we were giving up so many cheap points after playing well for long periods in games was incredibly frustrating. But look, as a goalkeeper, I'm probably a bit more lenient because when you do make a mistake, it's often a goal. It just hasn't worked out for him.
Yeah, I don't want to sound harsh on Turner, but I think the MLS is probably his level, really. I don't think he was Premier League level, unfortunately. But we'll move on from the goalkeepers to a player who is on Trent's side, and one hoping he'll be here come end of the window is someone you championed, Nathan. Last time you came on the pod, in Murillo, player of the season last season, his first season. I mean, there's obviously been a bit of an article trotted out on social media today, which, as you're aware, covering South America, the translation, some things get lost in translation, and I think we all know that. Well, we do. Let's be realistic. Forest are a stepping stone. Our mantra's kind of got to be buy cheap, sell big, and Murillo's fell into that category. I mean, what kind of impressed you most about his first season in a red shirt?
I think I'll address that first, because even if that isn't lost in translation and is true, and he said, I highly doubt he said this and phrased it that way in terms of, I'm using Nottingham Forest as a stepping stone. Of course he is. He has a potential to be a world-class footballer. He's not grown up looking at Nottingham Forest. He's grown up probably looking at Real Madrid. So that will always be like his ambitions, whether fans feel like he can fulfill that or not. The way he transitioned surprised me. I did think that I'm always very quick to wrap these players in cotton wool when they first come across, because there's a lot away from the pitch, which I talk about quite frequently, which players need to adapt to the new culture, weather, language, etc. A long way from home. I've recently been out there with 16-hour flight to Buenos Aires. Like it's long, okay? So like you are miles away from home, and that adjustment period is tough. And I was saying with Maria, I wasn't sure how much game time he was going to get. And I think Cooper's hand was almost forced a little bit by A, the performances on the pitch, and B, probably Maria in training, to be honest with you. And like those first couple of games, the Crystal Palace run, his home debut, which I can't remember who it was against now exactly.
But it might have been Brentford.
I think it was Brentford,
sure,
yeah. I think that makes sense. I can't exactly remember, so I didn't... Yeah, but he's just been so impressive, hasn't he? And the main things highlighted were probably his distribution from myself and his reading of the game. And I think they were so evident over the course of the season. Even if you look towards the tail end, that Sheffield United game, he was so impressive in the way he just knew the positions to get into to help out his teammates, which weren't helping him out necessarily. But he never panicked. He never turned around and blamed everybody. He was the one picking people up. He was the one leading the fight. And it's just his calm, measured manner was something really impressive for his age. And for me, it's all about players. I'm not a scout at all, but I can see players when it comes to their mentality, when it comes to adjusting to the Premier League. And Maria had that. Yes, he had a small sample size, but he still played 20, 30 games and was featuring heavily in the under-20s, which is a hugely popular league back in Brazil. So I was surprised, to be honest, with how quickly he took to the Premier League, but his performances were exactly what we saw with Corinthians. He was just casually doing it in the Premier League. And like I said, his diagonal balls were beautiful, and I could just sit and watch them. And I only got to go to Forest 2 or 3 times last season, but every time he did that switch, I just had a little smile on my face because it was just beautiful to watch. And we've not really been spoiled over the years watching Forest, especially with certain defenders. So the fact that he could just come in and perform the way he did, and fair play, if we've bought him for 10, 12 million and we sell him for 60 million, look where Brighton ended up in the Europa League by doing that. Yes, you may not hold on to the key players you want to, and everyone's fallen in love with him. But if he generates you that sort of money and you continue reinvesting it, then eventually you're going to become a really established Premier League club looking to break into that top 10, which is the overall aim. Unfortunately, yes, we all love Nottingham Forest, but we're not a club who can hold on to these players. It would be amazing if we could this season and get him until January or even next summer, but I still think that's pushing it, to be honest with you. And unfortunately for me, there isn't another Murillo at the moment. Like he was probably, alongside Lucas Beraldo, who went to PSG, the best left-sided centre-back in Brazil, which is why I was so surprised how quickly Forest picked him up. But the scouts seem to be knowing what they're doing. Even Danilo, I still highly rate him. I'll be surprised if long-term he's going to be at Forest as well. But it's just part of the process. And it's frustrating as fans because you want to progress. I completely understand that, but you have to be realistic at the same time, and especially with all these new rules and regulations, which I still personally can't get my head around half the time, trying to understand exactly what's going on. But it's part of the process for the next 2 or 3 years until Forest have been in the Premier League for 4 or 5 years, and then people see it as a project to get into the Europa League. It's just part of the process. And but look, for the fact that Forest plucked him out, and if you sell him for 50 million, which I think is easily worth that, plus a few add-ons, it's kept Forest up, which is worth millions in itself. You're making 30, 40 million on him, and to have a play like that represent Forest has been something I never thought I would envision. So I think we have to be realistic when we look at it, but I get how Forest fans will be upset if he is plucked away to a bigger club, but then that's exactly what we're doing with Corinthians. So you can't really be too mad at it because they've had players like that in their academy for 5-10 years from when they're young boys, play less than half a season, and Nottingham Forest come across by him, and then Forest fans get annoyed when he's bought. It's the process. It's how football works, unfortunately, in 2024.
Yeah, Harry Toffolo said he was the best passer he'd ever seen, in training, I believe. He was very much like when Michael Dawson broke into the Forest team, where he could just ping a ball like 40 yards across the pitch at ease. I mean, you mentioned there, Nathan, that you'd be surprised if he was to stay. The club have valued him, though, for reports to believe at around 70 million.
Love it.
See, I think if that is the case, I can't see anybody paying that. I mean, would you agree with me? Or
no, I do agree with you there. It's a case of if Forest may be demanding 70 when they're realistically wanting maybe 50 plus add-ons, when it's Morgan Gibbs-White was 40 million, but he wasn't. It's a little bit like that, isn't it? In terms of Forest are always going to try and squeeze out or put people off. But I think, say, for example, Atletico Madrid or Real Madrid did come and put like 50 plus 10 million add-ons, and Murillo's head's turned. That's when it gets a bit complicated. So it's all well and good Forest saying 70 million, and we can sit here and say probably no one would pay that. But if a team is serious and comes in with 50 plus add-ons or meets in the middle, and Murillo himself turns around and goes, this is Champions League football, you can't deny me that, the situation quickly changes, doesn't it? So I know I'm putting a negative spin on it because we're all getting excited now. Well, not excited because Niakate's gone, almost to be like, well, look, we've sorted out the financial issues, we can keep Murillo. But it just depends if and when that bid comes. And I would be very surprised if he's still here come the end of the window. Obviously, as a fan, I would love him to, but I'd also respect his decision if he was to go to a Champions League side. I wouldn't respect the decision if he was going to jump on with the Chelsea bandwagon at the moment. That would be a cause for concern, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I guess with the Chelsea is they can like offer us players, can't they? Like the likes of Chalobah, etc., who might come as like a mate weight, but
I'm always a bit hesitant with stuff like that because is the player interested? Are Chelsea forcing them out? Did he want to come?
He turned us down last season, Chalobah, for that example.
Exactly. So that's why I'm always a little bit hesitant with those deals, and I know they're becoming a bit more prevalent or We don't really see swap deals anymore, do we? But I think because of obviously PSR and everything which is going on there, we are seeing a few more, but they are rare. But I'm always a bit hesitant with that in terms of the players coming the other way if they're sort of almost forced out by the club where they actively want to be. So just a bit hesitant about that one.
I can't blame him if Atletico Madrid comes into him, because I love Madrid as a city. I mean, Real Madrid especially. Yeah. That would be something else. But I mean, we're all hoping he can stay, but we'll have to kind of see on that one. Do you expect him to be playing for Brazil in the near future?
Yeah, well, there's no reason why they can't. They've got Uruguay next in the quarterfinals of the Copa America, but they've been really poor, disastrous 2023 campaign. They brought in Dorival Jr., who's never really managed at this level. And yes, they beat England at Wembley with a team which was fairly injured. And so that was a really promising result, but it was just putting a Band-Aid on a really big problem and trying to paint over the cracks. I'd say probably Lucas Beraldo's preferred at the moment, which I know some Forest fans aren't particularly happy with. But he is an excellent player. And obviously, just because he's had that experience now with the Champions League and performed quite well in the tournament, that may put him ahead. But I know Brazil fans are itching for Murillo to come in. And I think if they get knocked out against Uruguay in the quarterfinals, which I fully anticipate, to be honest with you, that will be a huge turning point for a nation very much in crisis at the moment. And that may be part of the rebrand, the rebuild, and Murillo may be part of that, especially if they change the manager. But Dorival Jr. at the moment seems to wanting to pick the other Murillo from Palmeiras. So yeah, I'm not entirely convinced about that one at the moment, but he should definitely be aiming for it. But I think maybe he's looking at it as if I do secure another move, then or to a Champions League team, then Dorival Jr. can't go, well, look, Luis Beraldo is playing Champions League football and you're not. So maybe he's looking at it from that point of view, and he'll have 2026 in the back of his mind for sure.
Of course, yeah. Bielsa masterclass incoming, then you think?
100%. 100%. They're one of the best teams in the world to watch right now. If anybody is wanting to stay up or the kids are keeping them up, like 2 a.m, tune in. Uruguay, Brazil is going to be a belter of a game.
Well, carrying on with the Brazilian theme is our other Brazilian player who's here at the minute, which is Danilo. He's had 18 months now at the club, Nathan. Actually, he started our last 8 games, so he's established himself in the side. He does have a period where he's kind of on the subs bench, comes on, but like I said, last 8 games he started. I mean, just a note as well, he started all of Nuno's 6 wins in the league, every single game. So lucky omen for Nuno Danilo. I mean, what would you expect / kind of like to see from him this season going forward?
I think, look, he was excellent when he first came in. And for some reason, I remember a period, he didn't have a great game at home to Leeds. And then Cooper just banished him from the squad for like a good month when we had 4 games and we lost them all. And then he came back in against, I can't remember who it was, but someone against home. And then all of a sudden started picking up results again. And he formed an unbelievable relationship with Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson just when we needed him. And you can almost look at his 3 goals kept Forest up. He was working really well in that number 8 role. Never really saw that coming, to be honest with you, because he was defensive midfielder, number 6, out and out for Palmeiras. And then the start of the second season, well, he was injured here and there, wasn't he? And then he started getting little minutes. And Danilo's a sort of player who you continuously need to play in your team. Even if he's come back from injury and he's had 1 or 2 bad games, it's easy for Forest fans to turn around and go, he's rubbish, get Ryan Yates in. Well, no, you need consistency, not... Spoiler alert, not every player is going to play well every single game. That's not how football works. But playing Danilo consistently, as you've just backed me up there with the 6 wins under Nuno, consistently having him on the pitch in that diverse role, because he offers so much. I don't think having him restricted as that number 6 defensive midfielder works. I don't think sometimes his concentration is not always there, and you have to be completely on it in the Premier League. But he offers something going forward. And Forest have been heavily reliant on counter-attacks or Gibbs White to create. And the fact that when Danilo pushes up, he can score, he can offer an assist. He's a threat in and around the box. You saw his goal against Brentford. He's got it in his locker outside the box. He's dangerous running into it, and he can just cause a bit of chaos and bring about that creativity in the final third, which we have lacked across the last 2 seasons. Yes, we've managed to stay up, but there's always been a huge gap between the midfield and the strikers, especially when we've had like Chris Wood, who just turned into an excellent striker for that 2-month period when Awoniyi was out, which was ideal for us. But he's never going to be a player to sort of link up with the midfield and drop in deep. We need the midfielders to come up the pitch. Otherwise, defenders, midfielders are just going to sit defensively and you're just going to invite pressure onto yourselves. So Danilo needs that flexibility in between the central role, moving into a number 8. And I just feel like he can offer so much more in the final third once he starts playing. Now, Arsenal wanted him before he came to Forest, but they were a bit more hesitant. And then they actually inquired about him after only being at the club 4 or 5 months in the summer. Now, that's very telling. Okay, the fact that so many people are turning around and being like, he doesn't deserve a place, he's inconsistent, is nonsense to me. Yes, he's not always going to have a perfect game, but he's that player who needs to have consistency. If he gets a run of form, especially at home at the moment, like over the last season or so, I thought he excelled. I thought he was brilliant. A lot of players need to improve their away form, and there just seems to be a voodoo around that. And look, I'm not paid the big bucks in order to figure out that problem, so I can just have my opinion on it. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I do highly rate him. And I'm not just saying that because obviously I've been watching him with Palmeiras for years, but the way I think he's adapted to the Premier League, I feel like if he has an injury-free season, he's allowed to express himself in that more creative role under Nuno. Clubs will probably come knocking in the next season, but he's on a big contract. So again, that's a huge win for the club. I think it was a 6-year deal he signed. So
yeah, 6 year, yeah.
So if he's 3 years into it and Forest value him at 30, 40 million, if he has a good season next year, then again, it's really good business for the club. But I feel like a lot of people were out to get him last season, and he really proved himself towards the end of the year once he completely shook off that injury and he was a regular in the side. And yeah, for me, he'd probably be one of the first names on the team sheet, especially at home.
Yeah, I think the problem with Forest centre-mids is, like you said, Nathan, is that because we've got 4 centre-mids kind of competing for that earlier area in Danilo, Sangare, Yates and Dominguez, no one kind of knew what was the best kind of 2. So if one had a bad game, and this is for all 4 of them, it would be, you know, if Yates had a bad game, we need to stick Sangare in. If Sangare had a bad game, we need to stick Yates in. If Dominguez and Danilo, I think, played together against West Ham, that was really good. They then had a stinker at Everton. We need to get them out of the team. So it's just like you said, finding that consistency. And it's something we kind of really struggled with last season.
I think Forest aren't going to win more at the moment. Realistically, we're not going to win more than 10 games next season. Okay. And fans need to realise that, which is why we're going to have more bad games than good. That doesn't necessarily mean they're bad players. They're coming up against some of the world's best. So it's always going to be difficult. And the reason why you have these players is so you can diversify, because there's obviously cup games as well. And look, we all expected more from Sangare, but I just feel like he's a player. Daniel Taylor did an article about him, and I think there was a few ongoing issues in the background.
Malaria and...
Yeah, Christ, like give him a chance. And obviously then AFCON and everything else, like it's a settling in period. It's a completely different league. I just feel like some fans are very quick to be straight on him in terms of like a few games. It's the same with Danilo, it's the same with Dominguez. Ryan Yates, you could argue every single day about him, couldn't you? And one fan would tell you one thing and one would tell you the other. I have my opinion, but I'll probably steer towards the more creative players we have, to be honest with you. And if Sangare comes in and can nail that number 6 role and drastically improve, which he is capable of, yes, he didn't show that last season, but for me, that's the answer in terms of progressing with Forest. If Sangare can hold that number 6 position, allow players like Danilo, Dominguez, obviously Gibbs White to be more creative, then that's how Forest start climbing up the table for me. I don't think you'll ever see Forest in the Europa League and Ryan Yates start. And that's not me just getting a dig in there. I just feel like if you can make Sangare work in that position, then that's one huge problem solved. Not a Ryan Yates problem, a central defensive midfield problem which needs addressing in order to allow other players up the pitch to close the gap with the strikers, as I mentioned. And then I feel Forest can start churning out those wins, in particular away from home.
Where do you kind of see Danilo's ceiling? I know you mentioned obviously Arsenal were linked with him, and I know you said, you know, if he has a good season, clubs will maybe be looking at him. Where do you see him as a big. I hate saying it, but a big six player in the future? Do you think he's got that ability to get to that level?
If Arsenal have been looking at him, like maybe I'm just avoiding the answer to this, but if Arsenal have been looking at him, people who can read football better than I can know something. And I think the fact that he transitioned across to the Premier League so easily is a huge tick. Okay, look, again, we can touch on Sangare, like huge money, came in, didn't deliver. Yes, he had off-field problems, but Danilo came in and was solid. I think within a week he was playing Bournemouth away in like -1 degrees. And
I was there.
of course you were. And he played well. He came in and did his job. So I feel like a top 6, top 8 club's possible. He could easily go to a top 4, top 6 in La Liga. I think he'd completely rip up that league, to be honest with you. But I think he'd be foolish not to test himself in the Premier League. And if you're telling me that if he scores between 5-10 goals, or say 10 goal contributions next season, similar to Hudson-Odoi, who's had the likes of Spurs looking at him, are you telling me Danilo's not worthy of fitting into that bracket? I think it'd be very interesting. And a team like Arsenal, like, yes, that's a high ceiling at the moment with them competing for the title. But in that fluid sort of midfield, which Arteta loves to sort of play, and Danilo being on the front foot, like, I don't know. I think we'd see quite a creative, entertaining player there, because when Forest have dominated games at home, it's when he scored or when he's been in that final third. That's his opportunity, because defensive duties sometimes can be put under scrutiny. So if he is in a team which are going to be predominantly possession based, I feel like he could probably go up a notch.
I do find it like strange, like the so-called, let's say, elite clubs don't seem to take gambles much on these South American players. Like, for example, with Murillo, what was it, like 13 million now? For like a big 6 club, it's not a lot of money, is it? They could always sign him and loan him out to a side like us, for example. And yet, you know, they don't take these gambles, and then within a season, like with Murillo, you're adding on 50 million to the value, which is very strange. But
but the thing is, big clubs, right or wrong, are almost happy for teams like Forest, Wolves, Brighton, etc., to be the guinea pigs. And then if it does work, then we've got a proven player, because teams like Man United, Man City, Liverpool have to win every single week. They don't almost have that flexibility to be like, well, let's see a transition period. Chelsea probably have that flexibility at the moment because they're now a top 10, top 12 side. Yeah, over the last couple of seasons, we've seen that. They're allowed that sort of transition period, but the top 4, top 6 don't really have that, do they? There's that pressure to win every single game. But I am with you. But for me, it's great. I love to see these players coming across to the projects, because otherwise the Premier League will become probably even more boring, dare I say it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll stick with the sentiments, mate, but this time we'll change the nationality over to Argentina. I know you're a big fan of Nico Dominguez, Nathan. I've seen with Turkish links, they're quite loose. There were some links to Galatasaray today on social media. I mean, there was apparently an offer made of 11 million. I mean, that's not, I don't think that's even going to get a foot in the door, is it? He's probably very good today. He actually left Bologna because they've qualified for the Champions League for the first time. So I'm sure he's not better. Remo Freud has obviously got in. So, funny how these things happen. But I mean, what did you make of his first season in the Forest shirt? I know he was playing with a hernia injury towards the end.
Yeah, I thought he was great. For me, my guilty pleasure is players who can be creative in the final third, a bit like Danilo, but Dominguez, who can put a tackle in, isn't afraid to win the ball back. And I thought he was excellent with that. He was a fantastic ball retriever in Italy, and I think he did a really good job for Forest as well. And completely different player to Freuler, who obviously was like the direct replacement. But he's quick. He wants to win the ball back. Within the first couple of days, it was almost as if he was Nottingham born in terms of the tackles he was putting in. And I think the first game was Brentford, his goal?
Yeah, he scored the header against. I think his first actual game might have been Man City away.
Man City. Man City away. He was excellent. I think that he turned a lot of heads with his performance there, because obviously we presume Forest was going to go there and lose like 8-0, but he actually put in a really good performance. And then that first goal he scored was obviously a great header. I think he has a lot more to offer in the final third. I think he can definitely improve in terms of the goals he brings to the table, especially as Forest become more established and get more possession behind rather than just sitting defensively. But I think he came off with cramp in that Brentford game because he put in such a shift. Yeah. And that's what I like about it as well. Someone who can offer both. I think that's when it makes that midfield decision maybe a little bit harder, actually, in terms of who do you actually put in there. But you need to have these players who, considering he's come from Argentina, which is a ridiculously tough league in terms of the physicality of it. We always question it, don't we, when these South American players come across, can they handle it? Trust me, if they're coming from Argentinian backgrounds and Brazilian
they kick
football,
lumps at one another.
They're okay. They can definitely handle it. And you can see that within his game. He's very good at putting a tackle in, winning it back. But he knows what he's doing. He's very clever in the final third, little through balls. A game which just comes to my mind now is Blackpool. And was it Blackpool in the FA Cup? Horrible pitch. Yeah, horrible pitch, and not everybody wanted it that day, but he did. And it's not me saying, oh well, he's played well against Blackpool, so he should be starting. But it's little games like that and situations where he's like, Forest could sort of bend over here and struggle, or we could limp out of a competition, and he's like, it's not happening on my watch. And that's what you get with him. And I think similar to Danilo, he can operate in the final third and is a goal threat. Scored against United, if my memory serves me well.
He did, yeah.
Likes to go and attack up the pitch and join in, but he will sprint 30, 40 yards back and try and put someone in row Z. And we still like that part of the game for certain players, which is sort of being lost in the modern day, so to speak. So I'm a huge fan of him. I just think he's got everything. I don't know what more I can possibly sort of say with him there. Yeah. It's hard to know where they all fit, but it's a long season, competitive games, obviously in the Premier League, with the cup games. If we have a run, you need to rotate these players. So it's easy to say, oh, should he be starting in the 11 all the time? Well, there's a reason why you have 3-4 centre midfielders in the Premier League to rotate. And it'll be a huge disappointment if he was to leave Forest, especially for someone like Galatasaray. I don't think there's any truth in that. But I just hope Nuno gives him an opportunity and with a full pre-season after sort of the injury or whatever he had towards the end of last season. I think there's a real player in there, and he was one of the most exciting to come across, to be honest with you. He just offers an awful lot, and if you can do it at both ends of the pitch, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, I've seen a few fans on social media saying they're not quite sure if he's suited for us because sometimes he kind of goes with a one-man press, and we're kind of sat in a low block against a lot of teams. I mean, would you kind of agree with that, or is that something what Forest need to do going forward to become a better side, is press better as a side?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're turning around and going, well, Forest want to put 7 men behind the ball, then you're never going to progress and you're more likely to get relegated over the next 2 or 3 seasons. Forest need to know how to match teams, which is why the away record, although improved last season, has still been pretty poor, because you can't just keep... You can't get any worse. But you can't just keep sitting back and hoping for the best and getting a counter attack. It doesn't work in the Premier League. So you can't turn around and say a quality player like Domingos doesn't fit the system when he's probably been taught to press high up the pitch, win the ball back. He can read the game exceptionally well, so he knows when he can put a foot in. Yes, he's not been perfect at times, but who has? I do rate him. I feel like you need to sort of probably tailor that approach, but maybe Forest were in a position at the time where it was all about getting points on the board. But now, look, this is the 3rd season in the Premier League. Forest can't necessarily be looking at finishing 17th anymore. No. We need to be looking at stepping up. We are now categorized as established Premier League team, and we need to wear that with pride. And to do that, we need to start taking the game to teams, and Domingos fits that. Now, if you want to keep playing 7 at the back and soaking up the pressure, Domingos isn't your player, but then you're going to be looking at Championship football. So you need to progress, and I think sometimes Forest fans get a little bit lost with that in terms of being like, well, this is our approach and it works for us because we won a few games at home. But you've got to think about the long-term vision, and if you keep putting men behind the ball, it isn't going to work. There's no real long-term plan there.
Just, I mean, like I said, these Turkish transfer links are very loose. So just let's just say there is some truth in that rumour and, they've offered 11 million. What kind of would you value Dominguez at to say, actually, that's quite a good deal for the club? I think we maybe should look at moving him on. What would you say valuation-wise?
What was the exact fee? Because obviously he went
Apparently it was
one way with
11.
Froyer. It was about 10, wasn't it?
Yeah. Was it? Yeah, maybe about 8. I think it was 8 million plus the add-on. Yeah, Adams
Yeah.
just bought 8 million plus, Freuler. So, I
Okay,
don't know,
8 million. I mean,
about
what a
30.
buy! What a buy that is, to be honest. I know Froy has been excellent for Switzerland, but it just didn't suit Forest's system at the time.
Not getting into
Probably,
that debate.
yeah, apologies. Sorry, apologies. We can just cut that bit out. No, I feel like you're probably looking between 15, 20, aren't you, in today's market? If he was on the cusp of the Argentinian World Cup side, he was very unfortunate to miss out on that. So let's not forget about that situation. So he'll be looking at his next move as a team who will play him continuously in order to get back into that side. Now, Argentina, I know I said about Uruguay, but Argentina are the best team in the world, not just because they won the World Cup, but they are. They've lost 2 in 60 games. They're an incredible side, and Dominguez is probably 2 or 3 players out of that squad. Now, are you telling me that a player who's probably 28th, 29th on the roster for Argentina isn't good enough for Forest? I don't know, but I probably value him there. If you're going back to it, I'm getting a bit off topic. 15, 20 million, I'd say you'd want to make profit on him, because I think you would see further down the line that Forest would have probably made a mistake letting him go.
Yeah, I think I'd be edging towards a 20. I think 15 million don't do it for me personally, because I like Dominguez as well. I think he's a good player. I mean, I'm going to put you on the spot just to finish these centre mid talk. And let's say Nuno plays the 4-2-3-1. First home game of the season, Bournemouth at home on opening day. Who would be your 2 midfielders you'd go with in that game?
What a horrible question. Here comes all the hate across Twitter.
No, it's an opinion.
I'd probably... It's so interesting to see what happens with Sangare. I think if you want it to work long term, and he is going to be the player we all hoped he wanted to be, then I think you have to start him and you have to give him a good 5.
You've got to play him, and you can't be sat on the bench getting out 10 minutes. If not, you may as well, try and move him on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think Forest are in a situation where they need to make it work. So my hand's being forced a bit there, but I want it to work. And I feel like there is the player in there. And if Forest are going to climb up the table, they need Sangare to work and be in that position. So Sangare, probably putting him in there alongside him in that 4-2-3-1. At home, maybe Danilo, having him, just because you can have that flexibility in terms of, just because I'm looking at Bournemouth, and I think Bournemouth are a great side, to be honest with you. But
bogey side for us as well.
Absolutely, bogey side. Solanke last year was horrendous. But a team like that at home, unless you're playing the top 4, top 6, when you're probably going to be more defensive, I'd want to see Danilo move into that space and operate as a number 8, supporting Gibbs White. So look, maybe Danilo and Sangare, and then look, if Sangare doesn't work, or you're looking for a switch at halftime, that half an hour where someone's going to work incredibly hard, but also knows how to operate in that final space, Dominguez. I'd love a player to come in, because if you're going to put Ryan Yates on, yes, you're going to see out a game or maybe go deeper and deeper, but Dominguez can offer that and that final ball, or move the ball forward, that progressive pass, which is what we need. We don't want to keep sitting further and further back, or doing substitutes where we're chucking Joe Worrell on and going 5 at the back like Cooper tried to do time and time again in that first season. So I think I've covered it there. Danilo, Sangare.
Yeah, I think just to touch on Yates as well, like you said, he's ideal for the Luton game. It wasn't his fault, but not going that deep. But yeah, for seeing games out with his energy, and scrapping, and probably against like the better sides where you're going to be more in that low block, for someone who's going to be niggly. How he was against Spurs, I know he nearly ended up getting sent off that game, but he wound Maddison up to a point where he should have kind of been sent off. So that might be ideal, but we'll see. We've got 4 options in there, and they all can play a part next season if they're all still here, without a doubt, for me.
And that's it. And it may sound like I'm just here.
League.
Yeah, it may sound like I'm here just out for Ryan Yates and the opposite to a Brexit approach, because I'm advocating all the obviously international players. But just for me personally, I love a technical player and getting the ball down and actually looking to play it. And I just want somebody who can win the ball back, but then do something with it. And in a dangerous area, Ryan Yates, you're going to get maybe one goal of him out of the season, where if you consistently play someone like Dominguez and Danilo, they're going to get 3, 4, 5, 6, which goes a long way, as we saw with Hudson-Odoi, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll move on then. I mean, one player you'll be watching, well, have been watching the Copa America, is now Rio Ave's Brandon Aguilera. It was a bit of a surprise, that deal, but they are, of course, part of the Marinakis club group. So best of luck to him there. I mean, was that a surprise to see him go with his potential? Or, he's 21 now. Would you say that's a good move for him? And we kind of shouldn't lose much sleep on it.
We shouldn't lose too much sleep on it, to be honest with you. I think it's always, when Forest fans haven't seen a player play a few more minutes, it's always like, what could have been and all this. But I think he had a ceiling, to be honest. Yes, he went to Bristol Rovers and did a good job there, but it's a completely different ball game, isn't it? And if he's staying within the Marinakis family, so to speak, I mean, I'm sure Forest will probably arrange something if he turns into the next best wonder kid and we've all made a mistake. But I don't think they have, to be honest with you. So I think when he was brought in, he probably wasn't expected to play at all. But the way Forest have progressed and being able to bring in better targets and better players, he just was unfortunate in terms of just fell down the pecking order. Now, I didn't watch him against Paraguay last night because obviously I chose Colombia, Brazil. I think that was a more entertaining watch. Yeah. But in the first two games against Brazil, Costa Rica, he barely touched the ball, and then it's the same against Colombia. So I'm not going to judge him too harshly there. Yeah. He looks like a good technical player, but one which I'll probably lose sleep across with Forest, probably not.
Fair enough. Just to touch on someone else, who another player we had from South America last season, who it didn't really work out for, which was a huge shame, in Gustavo Scarpa. I've seen on your own Twitter page that he's now doing well back again in Brazil with it's Atletico Mineiro, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, why didn't you think it worked out for him at Forest? Was it the off the field stuff, because he was involved in that scam, wasn't he? Or do you just think the European football wasn't for him? What kind of happened, do you think?
There's loads and loads of stuff here. This could probably be an episode in itself, so I'll try and keep it short. The short version was he was never wanted by Forest. The deal was for him to come across to Olympiacos. Okay. Marinakis always loves a number 10, João Carvalho, James Rodriguez, those sort of players. And Gustavo Scarpa wanted to come across to Europe, and it seemed like potential good fit for Olympiacos. Now, I'm not sure exactly where he was doing his medical, but it was made a very 11th hour decision that he would actually be coming across to Forest. Okay. He came across to England, obviously very happy to be in the Premier League. Steve Cooper took probably one look at him and didn't want him. I didn't want to get to know him because he's already dealing with 30 plus of the players at the time. But then when he came in, that first 20 minutes against Southampton, thought he was excellent. Thought he did incredibly well, coming into a tough probably environment for us, chasing the first win. Yes, Southampton weren't in a good place themselves, but sprayed a good couple of balls, was interested, didn't shy away. Played against Blackpool, where Forest, I think it was, what was it, 4-5-1, whatever it was. Yeah. Were you there for that?
I was, unfortunately. Okay.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can back me up, because I think Scarpa was the only player who could take any credit that day, and for him to be there for a couple of weeks or in and around that team, and then he just played a full season. I think we always forget that South American season runs pretty much like February to November, and then came in. And then if you think about it, in the Premier League, when Forest were continuously losing and we were playing Jesse Lingard and Morgan Gibbs-White in like a false 9 position, and Gustavo Scarpa was, you're left-footed, you can play on the left wing. He hadn't really played that position for years at Palmeiras. He was a number 10, sometimes operates on the right, but playing for a team which predominantly has the ball, one of the better teams in Brazil. Now all of a sudden he's got to act like a left wing back in a team which was losing continuously and never had the ball. So I feel like if he was there at the end of the season when he wasn't injured, when Forest started to pick up a few results, it might have been different, especially if he came this season. But as you said, the whole cryptocurrency stuff off the pitch, had time off for that. I don't think Cooper really cared, and it was almost an excuse to probably not have him in around the squad. But the way Forest for the last 18 months have been poor with set pieces, like Gustavo Scarpa was the perfect player to bring on for the last 20 minutes. People will have opinions saying he wasn't good enough, etc. But if you think about it, playing in a position which you've never played before, in a faster league with a team which was continuously losing at the time, and a really patchy team in terms of how many injuries and suspensions, etc. Forest had in those January, February, March period, when it looked like Forest probably just going to go straight back down. I think there were things where I feel like it just was, everything went against him, to be honest. And you could argue he went to Olympiacos on loan, which was the original plan, and that didn't work out. But everything didn't work out for him off the pitch, and a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And then he went to Olympiacos when he wasn't really wanted either, or didn't fit into the team from the manager's point of view there. So look, everything went completely against him, and now he's back in Brazil and it's all rosy and working out for him. And from my point of view, it's great to see a player who I've admired for a long time, but he was never going to come and rip up the Premier League. Yes, I think he could have been a good squad player, but the fact that he wasn't wanted and then dumped upon Cooper, I mean, when does that ever work out for somebody? So yeah, I think it was just an unfortunate situation for everyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I was, I'm not an ITK at all, but I was told by someone with decent links that, like Emmanuel Dennis wasn't wanted by Cooper. And when you look at his Forest career's gone down the pan, you know what I mean? He's ended up being on loan last season at 2 clubs, and he's now surplus to requirements. So yeah, it is a shame, but I'm glad to kind of see him back in Brazil and doing well. With how you said the season runs in Brazil, it's kind of a shame if he was going to come to Forest, he didn't join in the pre-season before the first season in the Premier, so he could kind of got up to speed a bit with English football and that. But yeah, that's just one of them things, unfortunately. When you're signing the amount of players we did, there's going to be a few that don't work. So,
exactly, exactly.
So just to round off then, mate, so I can let you go. And, I know you're really busy, so I much appreciate your time. So thanks for coming on. So just basically 3 quick questions. So we'll start with the Forest related one. I mean, how do you expect Forest to do this coming season?
I think a lot depends on the coming months with the transfer window, to be honest. I still think Forest need a striker in because Awoniyi seems to be made of glass. I don't think Chris Wood is going to have the season he did last year. We can't rely on that. So I think Forest do need to bring in a striker and potentially another winger. But if those problems or those situations are addressed, there's no reason why Forest can't be looking at 15th and above. That's the aim. It's baby steps, isn't it? It's not all of a sudden, well, we stayed up now and we're a Premier League team, we've got to be looking at 10th. Let's just think about the bigger picture. As long as we're finishing in and around 15th and above, I think that'll be a successful season. And I know that sounds really negative.
I think that was the aim for this season, wasn't it? It's just that we regressed, unfortunately, this season.
Yeah.
And we had the off the field stuff, which didn't help. And yeah.
You think about the amount of teams who fall in that second season and like the fact that Forest stayed up with the point deduction and everything else which was going on behind the scenes. I think you've got to look at it fairly positively. But I think if Forest finish in the top 15 next season, I think that's successful. But then if Forest do finish in the top, or say 15th, 14th, we won't be hanging on to a few players. So it's swings and roundabouts, isn't it? If there's not instant success or a projection into, say, Europa Conference, which is probably a few years away yet, you will sort of take a step backwards. But then you are getting the money. So a difficult one, but I think it will still be a fairly positive season.
Yeah, I think even if we had like an amazing season, let's say finished lower top half, still the players, it'd be tough to hold on to them. Like you've seen that with Palace, they finished 10th. Elise is going to Bayern Munich. Gerhis, in my opinion, has been England's best player at the Euros. There'll probably be teams looking at him. There's
a low bar though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a low bar, but there's always going to be teams looking at Eze. So
exactly. It's you've got to be sort of looking at what Brighton do, and I know everyone said it before, but that takes a lot of effort and like scanning way beyond South America, looking into the Asian market, etc. So,
good example.
100%. But these things need to happen. I'm glad I'm not the person in that position, and I'm just the person reporting on it.
So yeah, last 2 questions, mate. So Copa America winner,
Argentina Uruguay final. Argentina win it. I'm sorry, it's boring, but it's going to happen.
And Euros winner.
Yeah. England. No, I couldn't even say. I'm joking. I think from I've probably watched about 70% of it, but who's impressed me the most has been Spain. To be honest with you,
same.
Spain Germany's probably the worthy final, but I do think Spain are a lot stronger. I think they've just impressed from the first whistle. To be honest, so yeah, Spain. I know. Boring answer. I think England get battered against Switzerland. To be honest, but we'll live in hope, won't we?
England are just like, I don't know what to, because they've been so bad, but they're just grinding out the results, and I just kind of think, can they do this all the way to a point where they probably, most likely, I agree, will probably play Spain, and then is it just going to be one of them finals where either Spain turn up, players off the park and beat us like they did Italy in 2012, I think it was? Or is it going to be the most turgid final and like we nick it like 1-0 or something? But
it's funny, right? Because we look at it with if you said before the Euros, if you pretty much just blagged your way to the final playing poor, you'd love it. But now it's happening and everyone's fuming. My main concern with Switzerland is we haven't played a team yet who have got at us. And I think that we could be a bit like rabbit in the headlights, to be honest, and we could be sort of undone. But look, even if that is the case, and it's been a terrible tournament, that 30 seconds of Jude Bellingham was almost worth it. I think after 30 seconds of a lot of celebrating, I was just laughing for a good 10 seconds just to be like, Southgate, you lucky boy. This was Iceland. This was worse than Iceland, and you've got away with it.
And then you look at the draws again. It's crazy. Like if someone would have said to you, look, your round of 16 would have been Slovakia, your quarters of Switzerland, and your semis either Turkey or Netherlands played well last night, but they're not the Netherlands of old.
Yeah.
You would have probably laughed. You know what I mean?
But I think that makes it harder to sort of swallow a bit, doesn't it?
Everyone expects more from this side because they've got the quality. There's no doubt about that.
But if you've got all that, individual quality, does it come together? Is it Southgate? There's a lot of questions to unravel. But let's focus on Forest and their pre-season.
Yeah. Right. Well, thanks for coming on, mate. Anyway, just before I let you go, did you want to do any plugs for the magazine and your podcast?
Yeah, the Copper Club. Copper Club podcast is still going, doing plenty of transfer talk. So if that's Forest links or not, we'll be covering it all throughout the transfer window. We're still doing Copa America episodes. We've got one released either tonight or tomorrow, depending how tired I am. Plenty going on. And we've got our latest magazine out in 3 weeks, which is a Copa America special, but 40 pages on all the Copa America teams, but then 40 pages on domestic football as well, looking at player profiles, other clubs, exclusive interview with Fortaleza's sporting director, which was pretty cool. Sat down with him and spoke all about Brazilian football. So definitely get involved, do support us. And if you buy a magazine, it means I can keep talking about South American football and links to Forest. But if you don't, then I can't. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, and did you enjoy the trip to South America when you went a few weeks back?
Oh, it was so good. Yeah. So long overdue. I was meant to be going before COVID, but obviously things unraveled. But spent some time in Brazil and Argentina. Brazil was unreal. It's funny because the questions I've been asked back was it safe and all that? And I live in London, right? But there's certain places where I won't go to after 10 p.m. and it's the same there. But genuinely, hospitality, views, everything to do with football was all absolutely insane. And I got down to La Bombonera to watch Boca, which was bucket list stuff. So I'm writing about my experience in the next magazine because it's definitely worth it. So feel free to check that out.
Plenty of Quilmes in Argentina, elite beer that is.
It was absolutely everywhere. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you for coming on, mate. Appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll chat again in the future, hopefully about South American stars.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.